My wife cheated on me with her boss, then secretly took $350, $0 of our savings, and filed for bankruptcy after I found out. Now she's claiming I'm the real threat in our fight over our house worth $1.2 million I thought was ours. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get like this, but here I am. It all started with little signs, you know. Small things that didn't seem like a big deal at first. Her phone buzzing at odd hours, her being overly secretive about her texts, and her suddenly insisting she needed more me time away from the house. I guess I ignored the warning signs because I loved her, or maybe I just didn't want to believe that the woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, could be capable of what I found out. Her name was Lisa. We'd been married for almost 10 years. We had a nice house in the suburbs, a decent life, and 2 kids I adored. I was a project manager at a construction firm, making okay money, and Lisa was a real estate agent, earning more than enough to keep us afloat. We weren't rich, but we had a good life, or so I thought. The first real crack in the facade came about 2 months ago. I noticed her spending more time on her phone, texting late into the night, and sometimes deleting messages. I'd ask her who she was talking to, and she'd brush it off, call me paranoid or insecure. But then I saw her sneaking her phone out of the house when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd catch her glancing at it nervously, quickly shoving it into her purse whenever I got close. One night I decided to check her messages. I used her phone when she was in the shower. I know, trust is supposed to be automatic, but I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. What I found made my stomach drop. There were dozens of texts, explicit messages, and even photos of her with a guy I didn't recognize, her boss. Mark. They had been sexting, talking about meeting up, and she'd even lied about working late when she'd been with him. The messages were full of flirtation, and some of them went way beyond that. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I read through everything in disbelief, trying to process how my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was cheating on me with her boss. It wasn't just an affair. It was an outright betrayal of everything I thought we stood for. And the worst part, I saw that she'd been lying right to my face, hiding this secret for months. The next day I confronted her. I called her out in the living room, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. I told her I knew about Mark, about the sexting, about everything. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, and she started spinning lies immediately. Said it was just some stupid flirtation, that it didn't mean anything, that Mark was just a bad influence, and she was just messing around for fun. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure and paranoid, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I couldn't believe how she was lying so effortlessly. She kept insisting that I was the problem, that I was making her feel trapped, that I was controlling. She even had the nerve to say that I was the real threat, that I was the one who was paranoid and jealous, not her. She claimed she loved me but needed something more, and that I was just too dull or boring to give her what she wanted. I felt like I was losing my mind, like I was standing in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The emotional impact hit me hard. I went from shock to anger, then to deep sadness. I kept thinking about our kids, our home, all those years we built together. I kept asking myself how I missed all this, how I had been so blind. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I wanted to believe her, I really did, but the evidence was undeniable. She was cheating, lying, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying every moment, every sign I had ignored. I felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and rage. I wondered how I could ever trust her again, or if I even wanted to. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was that my world was falling apart, and I was left standing there, trying to hold the pieces together while she continued to deny everything. The days that followed were a blur of chaos. I couldn't focus at work, couldn't sleep at night, and every time I looked at her I saw her differently, like she was a stranger wearing my wife's face. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, the way she lied, the way she spun her stories like they were some kind of twisted game. She kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a mistake, a stupid fling with Mark. But I knew better. I had the proof. And the worst part, she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. Things got even worse when I finally decided to dig deeper. I wanted to see if she'd taken anything from our savings, something that could give me a clue about how far she'd gone or what she was planning. I knew she'd been secretive about money lately, always making excuses when I asked about the bank accounts or the credit cards. I had a sinking feeling she'd been hiding something. So one evening I snuck into her emails, her bank statements, the files on her laptop when she was out with the kids. That's when I found it. There was a transfer of $350, $0 from our joint savings account. Gone, just like that. I stared at the screen, stunned. I couldn't believe it. We had worked so hard for that money, saving for our future, our kids' college funds, the house we dreamed of. And she had taken it all without telling me. I knew she'd been planning something, but I didn't expect her to be so brazen. I was furious. I confronted her again that night, this time with the evidence in hand. I showed her the bank statements, the transfer, the fact that she'd drained our account. Her reaction. She looked genuinely surprised, then defensive, then bitchy again. She spun some story about how she needed the money to start fresh, to get away from me because I was controlling and jealous. She said she'd been planning to tell me, but she couldn't bring herself to do it because she knew I'd freak out, that she'd been desperate and stupid, that she never loved Mark, that it was just sex, just a stupid mistake. I listened, but I wasn't buying it, not for a second. She was lying through her teeth again. She always was good at it. I could see right through her. I knew she'd been planning this for a while, taking the money, cheating on me, lying about everything. It was like she was trying to erase the life we built together with her own hands. The next few days were a nightmare. I felt betrayed, hurt, and downright angry. I couldn't believe she'd take our savings, our security, and then expect me to just accept it. I started questioning everything, our marriage, my judgment, even myself. How could I have been so blind? How did I miss all the signs? I was drowning in a sea of confusion and rage, and I knew I had to do something before she completely destroyed what was left of us. Then, out of nowhere, she filed for bankruptcy. Just like that, she wiped out whatever was left of our financial stability. She claimed she was overwhelmed, that she couldn't handle the stress, that it was for the best. I found out about it when I got served papers one afternoon. She'd hidden everything, including the fact that she'd taken the money, and now she was trying to leave me with nothing. She insisted she was the victim, that I was the one causing all the problems. Said I was the threat to our house, which she claimed was worth more than I realized, and that I was just trying to control everything. That house, our house, the one I thought was ours, the one we'd worked so hard for. Now she's claiming I'm the threat. It was like she was rewriting the story, twisting everything to serve her own lies. She was still lying, still manipulating, and I was starting to realize she wouldn't stop until she wiped us out completely. I felt like I was losing my mind. I didn't know whether to scream, cry, or punch a wall. My trust in her was shattered, and I was left with nothing but questions and a burning desire for justice. I knew I had to fight, but I didn't know where to start or what the end game was. All I knew was that I couldn't let her get away with this, her lies, her theft, her betrayal. I had to find a way to protect what was left of my life, even if it meant going to war with the woman I once loved. After she filed for bankruptcy and drained the account, I felt like my world was crumbling. It wasn't just the money, it was the principle. She took almost everything we had, our savings, our future plans, our sense of security, and then turned around and painted herself as the victim. I remember sitting there, staring at the papers she served me, feeling numb but furious at the same time. How could she do this? How could she betray me like that and then expect me to just accept her version of the story? That's when I decided I needed a plan. I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. I started digging into everything, her emails, her bank accounts, her phone. I wanted to know what she was hiding, how deep this whole mess went. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It was about her outright theft, her lies, and her trying to destroy what little stability we had left. One thing I found was that she'd been secretly meeting with Mark, her boss, even after I caught her sexting. They'd been sneaking around, planning to run off together if she could get away with it. I also discovered she'd been secretly investing money, or rather, stealing from us to fund some kind of escape plan. She'd been talking about leaving the city, starting fresh somewhere else, and I realized she'd been preparing for this for months behind my back. Her lies kept piling up. She told me she was overwhelmed, that she needed to get away from the stress of our marriage. She claimed she was saving herself from a marriage she no longer loved. But I knew the truth. She'd been having sex with her boss, Mark, for months. That wasn't just a fling. That was an affair that had been going on while she was pretending to be a devoted wife. And she was so good at hiding it, covering her tracks, lying, gaslighting me into thinking I was crazy. I started to realize that her entire story was a web of deception. She lied about her whereabouts, her finances, her feelings. She'd even lied about loving me, about wanting to stay married. She told her friends she was stuck, that I was controlling and jealous, that I was the real threat. She painted herself as the victim, poor, betrayed, overwhelmed. But I saw right through her. She was the one who betrayed me, who took everything we had, and who now tried to turn the tables. That's when I made a decision. I couldn't let her keep doing this. I needed to fight back, not just for myself, but for our kids and our house. The house worth $1.2 million, that was supposed to be our family's home, our legacy. And now she was claiming I was the threat to it, that she was the victim. I couldn't let her get away with it. I started consulting with a lawyer, an expensive one, but I knew I needed someone who understood the law and could help me navigate this mess. I wanted to know my rights, what I could do to protect our assets, and how to handle her increasingly aggressive and manipulative behavior. I also began gathering evidence, screenshots, bank records, emails, anything that could prove her deceit and theft. Meanwhile, she kept up her lies, throwing accusations my way, trying to paint me as the controlling husband who was trying to ruin her. She'd scream at me, call me paranoid, tell me I was the reason she had to cheat and steal. But I was done playing her game. I knew she was dangerous, and I couldn't let her continue to manipulate the situation. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. Every time I saw her, I saw the woman I once loved, but also the woman who had destroyed everything we built. I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel a deep sense of loss, loss of trust, loss of my marriage, loss of the life I thought I was living. But beneath all that, a small voice kept telling me I had to fight. I owed that to myself, to my kids, and to the future we were supposed to have. So here I am in this mess, trying to piece everything back together, knowing that the road ahead is going to be long and messy. But I refused to let her win, not without a fight. The more I dug into her financials, the more I realized just how far she'd gone to cover her tracks. It wasn't just the $350, $0 she took. She'd been siphoning money out of our accounts for months, slowly building a nest egg for her escape. I found bank statements showing transfers to offshore accounts, investments in shady schemes, and even cash withdrawals in places I never knew she visited. She'd been planning this for a long time, and I was furious that I hadn't seen the signs earlier. I also discovered that she'd been secretly meeting with Mark, not just for sex, but to hatch a plan. They'd talked about how to get her out of the house, how to hide the money, and even how to manipulate the legal system to her advantage. She told him she wanted to leave everything behind, our house, our savings, our life, and start fresh somewhere else. I couldn't believe how cold and calculated she'd become. It was like she'd turned into a different person. Meanwhile, she kept spinning her stories, claiming she was overwhelmed, that she was just trying to do what's best for herself, and that I was holding her back. She insisted she never loved Mark, that it was just sex, a stupid mistake, but I knew better. I had the messages, the proof of their affair, and I knew she'd been lying about everything. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I hardly recognized, selfish, manipulative, and dangerous. I started to prepare for a legal battle. I met with my lawyer, who told me I had a fighting chance to get a court order to freeze her assets, to prevent her from selling or hiding the house. I needed to act fast because she was trying to get rid of everything, trying to make herself untraceable, unaccountable. She even tried to file for bankruptcy without telling me, hoping to wipe out our debts and leave me holding the bag. I couldn't let that happen. I also began gathering evidence of her lies and theft, screenshots of her texts, copies of bank statements, emails between her and Mark. I knew that if this went to court, I'd need irrefutable proof. I also started talking to friends and family, trying to piece together her motives and see if anyone else had noticed her strange behavior. Some of her friends told me she'd been acting distant for months, that she'd been talking about leaving and starting over. That confirmed what I'd suspected. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless all at once. I loved her, I still do, but I couldn't ignore what she'd done. I kept questioning myself. How did I miss all the signs? Why did I trust her so blindly? Every time I saw her, I felt a mix of heartbreak and rage. I kept telling myself I had to be strong for my kids, for my own sanity. I couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built, not without a fight. And fight I did. I hired a private investigator just to make sure I had every angle covered. I wanted to know exactly where she was, who she was meeting, and what she was planning next. Turns out she'd been staying at a cheap motel nearby, meeting Mark secretly, trying to arrange their escape. I had pictures, proof that she was actively planning to leave me and take the house, my house, away from me. That was the last straw. The more I learned, the clearer it became that I was dealing with someone who was ruthless, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything in her path. I couldn't let her get away with it. I had to protect what was mine. I couldn't let her take our house, our savings, or our future. I was prepared to fight her legally, financially, and emotionally. Whatever it took, because I knew I wasn't going to be the victim here, not anymore. I owed it to myself, to my kids, and to the life I still wanted to salvage from this nightmare. The legal battle was everything I expected, and more. Once I presented my evidence, my lawyer worked overtime to get a court order to freeze her assets and prevent her from selling or hiding the house. She fought me tooth and nail, claiming I was trying to ruin her, that I was controlling, and that I had no right to interfere with her plans. She even accused me of being paranoid and jealous, trying to paint herself as the victim again. But I had the proof. Her text messages, the bank transfers, the photos of her meeting Mark, the offshore account statements, and I was ready to use every bit of it. The court hearings were intense. She showed up, bitchy and defiant, trying to intimidate me with her tears and accusations. But I stayed calm, knowing I had the upper hand. The judge listened carefully, reviewing all the evidence I had gathered, and in the end, granted me a temporary restraining order. Her access to our bank accounts was frozen, and she was barred from selling or transferring the house until the case was resolved. Meanwhile, I continued to dig. I hired a private investigator to track her whereabouts and her meetings with Mark. I needed to know exactly how far she'd gone and what her next move might be. The PI confirmed she was staying at a cheap motel nearby, meeting Mark regularly, and trying to set up an escape plan. She'd even been talking about how she'd disappear with the house, leaving me with nothing. That was when I realized I had to act fast. She wasn't just trying to take the money. She was trying to wipe out everything we built. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt betrayed and humiliated, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stay strong for myself, for my kids, for what was right. I started talking openly with friends, family, and my lawyer, making sure I was doing everything I could to protect our assets and our future. I also began counseling, trying to deal with the pain and betrayal, because I knew I couldn't let this destroy me completely. One night, I confronted her again. I told her I knew about her plans, about her meetings with Mark, about the offshore accounts. I told her I had all the proof and that I was going to fight for our house, our savings, and my dignity. She looked at me with that same bitchy sneer, claiming she was just trying to escape a controlling marriage, that she was doing what's best for her, and that I was the real threat. I told her she was a liar and a thief, and that I wasn't going to let her get away with it. That's when she snapped. She started yelling, accusing me of ruining her life, of trying to trap her, of trying to take away her future. But I didn't back down. I knew I had the law on my side now, and I was prepared to see this through to the end. The house, our life, everything I'd worked for, she was trying to take it all, but I was determined not to let her. The worst part, I still loved her. Deep down, I wanted to believe there was a way back, that she could see what she was doing and stop. But I also knew I couldn't be naive anymore. Trust was shattered, and I had to accept that she'd betrayed me in the worst way possible. I'd been, yes, but I was also starting to see her for what she truly was, someone willing to destroy everything for her own selfish ends. And I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter how hard it got. The court case dragged on for months, but in the end, justice started to catch up with her. The judge granted my request for a full freeze on her assets, and the court ordered her to return the money she'd stolen, every penny. The house which she'd tried to claim was worth more than I realized, was officially in limbo, and I was awarded temporary custody of the kids while everything was sorted out. I felt a strange mix of relief and exhaustion, knowing I'd fought every step of the way to protect what was mine. She didn't go quietly, of course. She continued to spin lies, claiming I was trying to ruin her, accusing me of controlling her and holding her hostage. But the evidence was overwhelming. Her affair, the theft, the offshore accounts, everything was laid bare in court. It was humiliating to see her try to manipulate everyone, but I knew the truth. I knew I had done everything I could to stand up for myself, for our family, and for the house that was supposed to be our future. When it was finally over, I made the decision to leave the house. Not because I wanted to, but because I knew staying there would only remind me of everything that had gone wrong. I found a small apartment nearby, a fresh start for me and the kids. I wanted to rebuild, to find some sense of normalcy again. The house, as much as I still loved it, was no longer ours. It was a symbol of her betrayal, and I couldn't keep living in its shadow. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and I'll never take it for granted again. I learned that some people will lie, cheat, and steal without remorse, and that sometimes you have to fight with everything you've got just to hold on to what's rightfully yours. I also learned that even in the darkest moments, there's a strength inside you that you didn't know you had. I found my voice, my resolve, and a new sense of purpose. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts. Don't ignore the small signs, because they usually point to something much worse. Keep evidence, stay calm, and don't let anyone manipulate or gaslight you. Your worth isn't measured by how much someone else tries to tear you down. Stand your ground, fight for what's yours, and remember that no matter how bad it gets, you can come out stronger. I did, and now I'm finally starting to rebuild my life, one step at a time, with a clearer mind and a heart that's a little more guarded but still hopeful.